So thank you so much. It is great to be here to talk with Jamie Thompson, our Assistant Dean of Students, and also the Director of Student Involvement, and with Juan Sepulveda, who is the Distinguished Professor of Practice that holds the Calgard Chair in Political Science. They have both been doing great projects thinking about how we can increase students participating in the election this year. And I just wonder, maybe to get things rolling, Jamie, could you talk a little bit about, voting is confusing. How do students make sure they're eligible to vote, and how do they go about that?
Great question. And that's a question we're getting from a lot of students, which means they're thinking about it and they're engaged. So I'm taking that as a positive sign. One of the things that the task force, there's a Trinity, Census, and voter engagement task force, and the student members on the task force immediately snapped to and desired to, in thinking about sharing resources with students, we knew that we didn't want to inundate them with a large number of web pages and resources and things like that. And so we've really been directing folks to a few or a handful of resources. One of those is TurboVote. TurboVote is funded by the Student Government Association, SGA, and we're really excited and proud of SGA for doing that. Our partnership with TurboVote enables students to receive voter registration assistance, vote by mail assistance, and then also election reminders. So part of that confusing element right now for students, of course, is that they're located all across the country. Some may have already registered to vote in Bexar County, others haven't even begun the registration process. And TurboVote, so trinity.turbovote.org, is a great resource and starting point for students. TurboVote also came out with a great texting element recently, and students can text VOTE to 762, and then the words all vote, ALLVOTE. What happens is it's like a decision tree logic that flows, and so students can identify where they currently are, how that might shape where or how they vote, and so it's an incredible tool. Ultimately, students can always reach out to task force members. We've got almost 15 students on our task force, but lots of faculty and staff too. So we're hoping through different social media and web pages and workshops to be able to make sure students have access to the resources, but also can reach out to folks if they have questions.
Okay, so Juan, as you're listening to this, we're knowing how students can get prepared to vote. As a faculty member, could you talk about who all you see on campus participating in the effort to raise awareness of voting and what that means for you?
No, it's been exciting. It's been really exciting to kind of see just everyone who's kind of getting involved. And like Jamie was mentioning, whether it's students, whether it's kind of faculty and the staff, everyone's been kind of jumping in. I mean, there's no doubt that this election is really important, and you can feel it. I'm an advisor for a couple of groups on campus, right? For the Trinity Progressives, for the Maverick Society. And as I was just kind of having meetings with them and kind of told them what we were doing, they just jumped on it. And so we've got students who kind of stepped in. We've got faculty who stepped in. So it's been a lot of fun just to kind of see everybody on campus, and you can just feel the energy of folks wanting to participate.
Jamie, could you talk a little bit? I know that you know some of the statistics. How many students, percentage-wise, from Trinity have participated in elections, and do we have a goal for this year?
We do. So Trinity is a participating institution with the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement, and that does give us access to important data about Trinity students' voting behaviors. So in the last presidential election in 2016, 86.8% of eligible students registered to vote. And in the 28 midterm elections, that number increased to 88%. So good news there. And our voting rates aren't too shabby either. So looking at the presidential election voting rate in, 2012, that was 44.5%. And then in 2016, nearly 53% of eligible students voted. I think it might be interesting or important for the Trinity community to know that both of those voting turnout rates in 2012 and 2016 are higher than the national student voter turnout rate. So that's the past, but in terms of the future, so for our goals, the task force, I would say, set some ambitious goals. So our goal is for 90% of all eligible students to register to vote on campus. Really, if that's 100%. We want all students. Trinity is participating with a campaign and a program called #AskEveryStudent, and that is our goal, to ask every eligible student to register to vote. But we've set that number at 90%. And then a 65% student voting rate is the goal on the voter turnout.
That's great. Thank you both for participating and doing all of this. Juan, one of the things that is really interesting about your experience is that you've been engaged in politics in a lot of different ways. You've published a biography of Willie Velasquez and his leadership in Texas, thinking about voting rights for Hispanic Americans. You also have been teaching about the election, and you've done some of your own participation and project. Just share a little bit and talk about why, from your point of view, what your history is, but why is voting important?
I think that's a great question. I think, I learned from Willie, the phrase that su voto es su voz. And so the notion that your vote is your voice is power. And so kind of that's always been a big part of kind of how I got started into politics and kind of community work, and seeing just the impact it can have and to really kind of change things for a community. And when you think about this election, this particular year, and just kind of what's going on with the pandemic, with social unrest, with what's been happening in the economy, you can just even feel kind of it moving to a whole other level. And so I feel lucky that I've been able to kind of really kind of do it both on the ground in terms of what it was like to go around the Southwest and really kind of do community organizing around the registration. I felt lucky to kind of be a little bit behind the scenes to kind of see what it was like to be on a presidential campaign with Senator Obama when I led Texas, and then help with the Hispanic portion of the re-election. And it's been great with the students right now to share those stories, to help them kind of get in class to kind of say, this is how it really works, and to see kind of what it can mean for them to kind of have power. Jamie was mentioning some of the numbers, and I was thinking about, when you think about just what happened in the midterm elections for college students, I mean, the numbers doubled, right? And what's interesting is that when we think about just particular groups, the largest percentage of folks to turn out were Black women at the college level, and the biggest increase was around Latina women. And so it's interesting just to see even the different groups and just how we have stereotypes of people who we think aren't participating. Young people don't care. They really aren't interested in any of this. And the opposite is actually kind of happening. And so it's great to kind of see what's happening and what's happening here on campus, and how we're a big part of that across the country as well.
Yeah. So Jamie, Juan mentioned a little bit about COVID and some of the impacts there. What have you heard students as they're thinking about the way the pandemic may affect participation in the election?
Yeah, mostly it's around figuring out where to register to vote, the impact of not kind of all physically being in the same place. And so understanding the various state regulations. I do hear students talking about early voting as really where they want to invest their energy. And I think that as it relates to COVID and safe behaviors and remaining healthy, that the span of time for early voting gives them some options to select a day and time where they might feel more comfortable going. And, I think I have had a few one-off questions with students and parents actually who are saying, my student isn't comfortable, is unable to go to the polls for health reasons. What options exist? And those are some really individual conversations and problem solving to figure out where they currently are, where they can be registered, requesting mail-in ballots. And so that is at the top of the mind for students, but from lots of different places that students are wondering about, the safety going to the polls, how it's impacting their registration. So it is certainly shaping student voting behaviors.
Okay, that's great. So as we're winding this conversation up, a couple of last questions. One of them, we emphasize the value of liberal arts and everything that goes on at the education at Trinity. How do you relate voting and participating in democratic process as part of an educational experience for our students? Juan, maybe you could talk about that.
No, I think I've been talking to folks about that. That's one of the things I love about being at Trinity, is that, a Trinity education is not just about the education, but it's about our connection to the community. And so it's interesting to see that we're trying to produce leaders, right? That if we're not doing our job here as a university, if we really haven't said, we've got to get you ready, not just to be for your career, but you've got to be ready to play a role in the community. And what's been great is to see the students that they say, that's what it's all about. And so I think about our students who kind of, Jamie was just talking about some of the challenges, and to see these students to step up and say, we're going to help people make a plan to vote, right? To really get serious about this. a lot of times you can get lost in the voter registration piece. That's interesting. It's an easier piece at times, but actually getting them out, students who are interested in serving poll workers, making sure people show up, that takes it to a whole other level. And it's proud to be a part of a place that says that's what it means to be a Trinity Tiger.
Yeah, so it's great. So you're talking very much about active experiential participation in the process. Maybe as a last question, Juan, is there anything you want to add? And Jamie, I'd like you to also talk about this. If you're a student listening to this and think, what can I do to get involved? What are the key things you'd want them to take away? Maybe Juan, you could start and we'll let Jamie finish.
So students have already been asking, right? So part of it is we've been connecting them to the campaigns themselves, right? If you want to get involved, whichever campaign you want to support, sign up. And in a strange way, the pandemic has made it different and that people can do this virally and virtually, right? And so in the midst of the virus, so there's a lot more opportunities this time around in a strange way. You don't have to take off from school. You can kind of get directly involved. But we're also looking them to, like I mentioned, to serve as poll workers. That's going to be such a key piece of what's going to be challenging for the country, because we've had 60% of the poll workers in the country are usually senior citizens. And so they're not going to be able to do it just because of the ongoing virus. And so having students kind of step in is going to be really important. So getting involved in the campaigns directly, getting, serving as deputy registrars to get folks there, and really kind of, also kind of participating on election day at the polls are some of the key pieces we've been talking about to get them directly involved.
That's great. And so Jamie, someone's coming to student involvement. How do I get involved? Where would you send them?
Well, I would send them to trinity.turbovote.org. But in terms of something that they can do today and tomorrow to be a part of this process and democratic engagement, what we've been talking to voter advocates, these are representatives from our athletic teams and our student organizations and residence halls. We've been talking to them about leveraging their own personal connections and relationships. And so if folks can identify 3 people that they can text or call or chat to, and say, have you registered to vote? Do you have a plan to vote, as Dr. Sepulveda mentioned, and stay in touch with those individuals. So if those individuals register to vote, then follow up and say, oh, that's so awesome. I'm glad to hear that you did that. Now, do you have a plan to vote? And what happens if it rains on that day? And so on and so forth. And so the idea of immediately being able to leverage your relationships and your contacts in your phone, right? That's something that you can do today or tomorrow to increase voter registration and voter engagement.
So I just want to thank the both of you for this great conversation. I thank you for the work you're doing to really support our students being deeply engaged in this very important activity. I love the stories about the ways that our students step forward and are exploring ways that they hands-on participate in the democratic process in the United States. So thank you for all you do to help our students stay engaged, connected, and participating. And I look forward to seeing you all after the election.